Okay, so today the class is about the development of heart, and I hope you've gone through the notes which I've given you. So development of heart, see, previously I've covered 2 classes about this development. So I'll just give a quick review in this class. So what is this development of heart? So for understanding this, first thing is you should know where exactly the heart is developed. So it's like I'll be starting all the time from the beginning whenever I start embryology, because it's like hardly it enters into your brains whenever I teach. So the first thing is, first you should know where this is going to develop. So I've given you about 10 points in the note yesterday. So that 10 itself will be expanding here in this PowerPoint today. Okay. Come after the side, then you should know how this tube is being formed. And a single tube is again, it's going to form the 4 chambers of your heart and also your outflow tract. So outflow tract comprises of, if you remember the dissection of the thorax, you've seen the heart. So there is a pulmonary artery and there's an aorta, ascending aorta, and arch of heart and descending. So all this, they are like parts of the developing heart tube. Okay, so that we are going to see this heart tube, and we keep on saying heart tube, but it's like it's going to again form a loop. So that's about the cardiac looping. Then within the tube, there are again septa that are formed to make it into chambers. And there's a different alignment. You can see, if you remember the dissection of heart, it's such a complicated structure. Like you look at it, you don't know which chamber of the heart it is, like right or left, and then you just see the pulmonary trunk and identify, yes, this is coming from your right ventricle. So there is like, and this proper cardiac looping, okay, this loop, and then proper partitioning, and this proper septation, all of them are important for the normal development of the heart. So the heart starts beating by the age of 22, even though it does not still acquire the basic adult shape. Okay, so this is important for maintaining the circulation and the nutrition within the developing embryo. And this heart is prone to quite a number of teratogens. So teratogens are those which will interfere with the normal development. So like if a mother she's an epileptic, she's taking some drugs, or she is a smoker, or if there is some fevers, and that is because of a rubella virus. So there are certain conditions like which will affect the development of the heart. And if the mother is a diabetic, okay, and some conditions that the placenta and all, I mean, there is a hypoxia, that is decreased oxygen to the developing embryo. So that also has an impact on the development of heart. And depending upon the severity of the development, so there can be an abortion, or there can be at the time of birth, there can be the death, or in the early infancy. So those which can, manage with the normal life, they extend up to the childhood, but further on again it may be difficult. So depending upon the severity of the anomaly or the congenital heart disease, the lifespan is determined, right? So this is the basic thing about the development of heart. So we'll just go into it now. Okay, so this is the embryo. So if you remember, I keep on saying there's embryo will be folding. So you've got a dorsal surface and there's a ventral part. So when this embryo has folded, so this is actually the cardiogenic area. If there's a flat embryonic disc, much before the oropharyngeal membrane, you have the cardiogenic area. So that cardiogenic area is destined to become your heart. That is the region where it's going to become the heart. So with the folding of the heart, folding of the embryo, so this cardiogenic area has come to locate, it's got relocated to the ventral part of the developing foregut. So this is the yolk sac, okay, and then here you see this is your gut. So this is the foregut, midgut, and then this is the hindgut. And what is that mesoderm which is adjoining your gut? That is just planktopleuric mesoderm. And that which is towards your body wall is the somatopleuric mesoderm. And between them, they are split because of what? And cavity, the body cavity. And you can see the part of the body cavity here. This is a pericardial cavity. Okay. So this heart tube, it is developing in the splanchnopleuric mesoderm, which is located ventral to the developing of foregut, right? And just ventral to it, you've got the pericardial cavity. So this tube, okay, so how does this heart form? So this is like, so I told you mesoderm and the mesenchyme. So embryonic tissues are 2, epithelial tissue and mesenchymal tissue. And this mesenchymal tissue, this can give rise to any kind of tissue except for that nervous tissue. Okay. So this, they form by a process called vasculogenesis. So de novo synthesis of the blood vessels in the embryo or anywhere in the mesoderm. So there is a process called vasculogenesis, because of which the endothelial tube develops. And to correct it, it is actually two tubes that are formed. So on either side, and with your lateral folds, okay, they come together and form a single tube, single heart tube. And you can see this. Okay, so this is the heart tubes, the endocardial heart tubes. So with this folding, and they're coming here together. So this is the foregut and the ventral aspect. So now we have taken a section this way. So this will be forming the heart tube. And here, this is the developing heart tube. So now this heart tube will not just remain like a cylinder. Rather, there are series of expansions and constrictions. And these we give names. And then this will be going on elongating. And that's why you can find this cardiac looping. Okay, so you are just showing you this two-dimensional cardiac looping. So this is it. And let's see. And there are two ends for the heart tube. So this part is the venous end, and the other is an arterial end. So venous end, this will be picking up the blood from the embryo and from the placenta, as well as from the yolk sac. So about that development in tomorrow's class we'll be discussing. So that is a venous end which gets all the venous blood, right? And the other end which you're seeing here, this is your arterial end of the heart tube. So arterial end of heart tube, again, remember, recollect the heart which we have seen. So there are two trunks that emerge from the heart. One is a pulmonary trunk and the other is an aorta. So these two will be developing from that particular end, that is your arterial end. And if you recognize these, so this is what? This is your dorsal aorta, which is developing dorsal to the developing gut. And there'll be communication here. So here what actually have to be the mesenchyme condensation is a branchial apparatus, so branchial arches. So here from here the aorta, from the heart tube, there's a communication to your dorsal aorta behind. So on the sides of the developing gut, later it's going to be 2, 3, 4, and 6. There'll be communications here. That is the aortic arches. So that again I'll tell you tomorrow's class. Okay, so I hope this you understood the concept here. So this is the arterial end, this is the venous end. Then when you look at this, you can see the names are given, so the expansions and the constrictions. So this part here, this is the sinus venosus, okay, which is going to receive the venous blood. Then after this, you see this is a primitive ventricle, and then, sorry, this will part primitive atrium I skipped. So sinus venosus goes into the primitive atrium. Then if you remember the heart, the pulmonary veins and the vena cava, they're all giving it into the primitive atrium, into the atrium. Then this primitive atrium is, this is the entry point to the ventricle. So this is the atrioventricular orifice, atria and ventricle. And then here, this is the ventricle, primitive ventricle. And then again, you see beyond this, this is bulbus cordis. And then you've got a truncus arteriosus. This truncus arteriosus will become your future aorta and the pulmonary trunk. And here one important point is this particular primitive ventricle, you have two ventricles. You have got your left ventricle and the right ventricle. So the left ventricle is formed by the primitive ventricle and the right ventricle is derived from the bulbus cordis. So when you look at this particular formation, if you just correlate what you've seen in dissection, the left heart blood has to go, the left atrium to left ventricle and then to the aorta. And I told you aorta develops here. But then see, this is left ventricle, but the blood will be going into your future right ventricle, then into the outflow tract. But that is not the case when you see the adult heart. That means there is some realignment and chamber expansion that will lead to the normal adult heart. So this is one important thing we have to consider in this class. Then you can see the tube is elongating, but the space is limited, because of which the heart starts looping. And initially this is a C-shaped loop, and then it becomes a more like an S shape. So what is it that is important in the development of heart? So after these chambers have formed, and then there should be a septation, there should be partition in the heart. Okay, so at the level of atria, and then the AV canal. Okay, that again has to be, because you need, when you are above, you're having two atria. Then also this particular AV canal should also divide. AV canal is what? Atrioventricular canal. So that particular canal which is allowing the atrial blood to enter into the ventricles. So that has to be divided. Then there also should be realignment of primitive chambers. As I've previously shown you, primitive ventricle is continuous with your primitive atrium. But bulbus cordis is continuous with primitive ventricle. But bulbus cordis gives us right ventricle and this gives us to left ventricle. So there should be some realignment again, so that the upper two atria which have formed can dump their blood into the respective ventricles. Then for that, there should be also be an initiation of the separation of the ventricles. So ventricles also one chamber. Primitive ventricle is a different chamber, bulbous cord. So between them, there should be a ventricular septum that has to start. So initiation. Then atrioventricular valves have to develop. Then the outflow tract. The outflow tract has to again divide because it has to, one outflow tract should be connected to your right ventricle. The other outflow tract should be connected to your left ventricle. And then completion of the ventricular septation. So this I have added here because the outflow tract separation, and that will extend up to the interventricular region and will complete the ventricular separation. So these two are related. Then semilunar valves. So this is already I've taught the right atrium interatrial septum development. So here two sections you'll be seeing. So this is when you're viewing from the front, and this is from one side you're viewing. Okay, so they'll be parallel here. 4 slides are there. So this is the primitive atrium, and this is the primitive ventricle. Okay. So first, from the roof of the primitive, supposing, imagine this is your primitive atrium. That is a roof, and this is the floor where in between your septum, this is going to form. Okay. So primitive atrium, this is the primitive ventricle. And you can see from the roof of the primitive atrium, a septum is coming down towards this atrioventricular canal. So that's a point where beyond which is a ventricle. At the same time, you can see there are something projecting into the canal region because there should be a bridge formed, right, where it can catch. So when a septum has to form, there should be something here so that it can come and meet this. Okay, so this one, these two will come together, and then this one will be coming. I don't want to spoil this. Okay, fine. So this will come and meet this. So that's how the right and left atria will get separated. Okay. So initially, such a big gap you can see, and you can see this one. The septum is growing down towards this part here. Then as this is meeting here, so this is the foramen primum. So there are 4 things you need to learn in interatrial septum. So interatrial septum formations, one is a septum primum, then there's an ostium primum, septum secundum, and also ostium secundum and foramen ovale. So look at this. So this is the septum primum, and this opening which is left here, this is the foramen primum. Then as this is coming down, so obviously there's a stretch on that particular membrane that is, your original septum primum. So there'll be perforations and then there'll be a tear. And remember, septum primum is a very thin membrane. So you can see, and through the perforations here. And the important thing here is this, see, after this has formed, this is going to meet here. There's again a perforation starting here. What is the reason? Because throughout development, till the time of birth, there needs to be a shunting of blood from the right towards your left, because pulmonary circulation does not develop only when the baby is born. That's when your pulmonary circulation comes into full effect. Okay. So throughout, there should be right to left shunt has to be maintained. So that's the reason. So though this is coming here, again the next aperture is getting ready. So this is foramen secundum. So as it has come here, again here, and then this comes and meets. And now just beside it, another septum begins. So this is a septum secundum. Okay, so septum primum, this is ostium primum, this is ostium secundum. Then the next one is coming, that is a septum secundum here, and that tries to grow like this, and this is much more muscular compared to that of this septum primum. Okay, so you can see how this is going and covering it. And this one is the foramen ovale. So whatever blood comes here from the veins, the vena cava, inferior vena cava especially, and the superior vena cava. So this goes, this is like a valve now. So there is always a pressure, like from the right, it has to go into the left. But for suppose, again, the left side blood can come back. There's every chance that it can come back here. But what happens, this septum primum just goes back and touches the septum secundum because it's a thin flap. Okay, so this will again act as a valve. So like this. And after birth, it's going to, see the blood, if it goes this way, it's going to open up. But if it's the other side, then it's going to close. So in the adult heart, this is what. In the interatrial septum, we'll ask you to identify the gross specimen when it is given, the right atrium. So the interatrial septum region, you can find the fossa ovalis, and this is the limbus. Okay, this region forms the limbus of the fossa ovalis. Then coming to the atrioventricular canal. So once again, let's recollect the intratrial septum in the primitive atrium. So first is a septum primum that reaches the central part here. So there's a ostium primum. As it comes down, above there's another hole, that is your ostium secundum. Then on its the right side, there'll be another septum that is coming here, that is septum secundum. So between these two, whatever you have, that is your foramen opale. And AV canal, this you can understand. See, from here and here, the cushion tissue is coming here. So initially, this atrioventricular canal is a communication between your atria above and the ventricle below. Okay, slowly there will be a partition here, and you can see there are two canals here. So now the atria, it's like ready now. Now, let's look at the realignment of the primitive chambers. So here you can see AV canal. So initially, it is one big opening between the atria and the primitive ventricle. And remember one thing, the modeling of the heart is not like the regular construction process which you see. Like after the first floor, okay, let's go to the second floor. This is completed, let's go to third. It's not that way. Atrial separation, atrioventricular separation, ventricular separation, everything takes place simultaneously at different growth rates. Okay, but it's not that atria is completed, next AV canal is completed, and then we go into the ventricle. It's not that way. That's why when I'm showing you the development of these ventricles here, I'm showing you still one common canal, that is your atrioventricular canal. That is in the process of forming the two AV canals. So actually AV canal has to directly lead into your left ventricle into the presumptive right ventricle, which is bulbus cordis, and right ventricle into the outflow tract. But this is not what we want. So now how is the realignment happening? You can see the expansions. So chambers expand. So you can see expansion here. And there's a stretch here again, atrioventricular, it's growing. And then you can see the atrioventricular septum has formed. So this one has formed. And now you can see there's two different canals and not one. So as the chambers are expanding here, you can see there's a muscular ventricular septum that is forming. And then a little more, there'll be some alignment. After that, you get this, left into this and right into this. That's the alignment of the primitive chambers. Then, so septation of ventricles and outflow tract. I told you these two are related to each other. So just look at this diagram, this part here. So this is the left ventricle, and this is your right ventricle. So this part here, okay, left and the right ventricles. We are looking from a side. So we've cut open the right ventricle and looking at it. So left chamber expanded, and this side also right. So this is the bulbus cordis. Because of realignment, the two AV canals are looking into the respective chambers. So this, as these two are expanding, the tissue between them comes to stand out, and that is like you feel that the septum is growing. Actually, these are expanding more lower down, causing that to stand out more prominent, and that is called as your muscular septum. So interventricular septum is formed of two components. One is a muscular component and the other is a membranous part. So muscular component is this. Okay. Now just look at this. Bulbus cordis leads into where? Into your outflow tract. And left ventricle blood can come through this interventricular foramen to your right ventricle. Okay. And the blood gets mixed here and goes up. So there's one thing here. Supposing you want to shape your career, or you want to study better, whatever it is, the thing should come from where? From within you. Same way, now the left ventricle blood has to go into the aorta. Okay, it needs its own separate outflow tract and not just mix with the right ventricular blood and just go into a common trunk. So what does it do? It pushes, whatever blood flows, it goes in such a direction like it hits to the posterior part of your bulbus cordis. And whatever is coming here, this is more ventral. Okay, so you can see this is the right, this is the red color one is showing the blood from the left ventricle. The blue one is showing the blood from your right ventricle. So it's pushing and it's going back. Okay, this is going more dorsally, and then this will be more ventrally here. You can see this is more ventral, and then this goes more dorsal. So because of that shaping, you get this septum formation. Okay, it just hits on the walls of the distal part of bulbous cortex, which will contribute to your outflow tract, and there'll be a cushion tissue. So yesterday I've given you cushion tissues are both mesenchyme and neural crestals. So migrating neural crestals come here and they form, those cushions, and they start forming the septa. From, you can see two different colors. So from right and left bulbar ridges form and they meet. But actually, how should the aorta be? Aorta goes forward and the pulmonary trunk goes behind it, like this. So though when you look at the heart, the aorta, you see the pulmonary trunk, but then it goes beneath the arch and then divides into right and left arteries. So which was actually behind, forced itself forward. So you can see the spiraling of the blood flow. So from the left ventricle, it goes behind, okay? And then again, it pushes it forward. This one, which was initially forward, then again goes back. So there is a spiraling of the blood flow. Because of the spiraling of the blood flow from the ventricles, there is a spiral septum that will be forming, okay? And this blood flow hit on the walls of this outflow tract that will actually stimulate the formation of the cushion tissue and form the septum. So bloodstream within the bulboventricular root is directed first caudally, then to the right, and then cranially. So it comes this way. And you can see how this is being formed here, the septa, there two are meeting, and these two meet and they come towards your muscular septum. So I told you one thing, just remember, septation of ventricle, septation of outflow tract, both are related to each other. Okay, so first I have told you about the outflow tract. Okay, outflow tract is outflow from the right and left ventricles. So because of the forcing of their blood into the outflow tract, they have distinct the shape of the septum that has to form in the outflow tract. Now the septum has formed, which you can see the spiral septum. It's almost 180 degrees it is turning. This will come and reach the muscular septum. As I told you, interventricular septum is formed by a combination of what? Muscular part and the membranous part. So muscular part is this lower gray color one. So this comes to meet this part. Okay, this two bulbar ridges, they come to meet the muscular part. At the same time, this is atrioventricular region. Again, here you have cushion tissue that also contributes some tissue here. Okay, now the outflow tract is getting partitioned, and here you've got the ventricles. So this septum should cover it in such a way that it should go behind the right AV orifice and include the interventricular foramen. See, this is interventricular foramen, this entire part. This is your right atrioventricular orifice. So this has to go behind it and then include the, interventricular foramen. So whatever blood is coming from here, what comes from here? From the left atrium, enters into the left ventricle. Okay, from left ventricle, see what behind you can't see. It's going here, going into the aorta. So a separate channel it has formed to itself, for itself. And then whatever blood comes from here, right atrium into the right ventricle, has to go through this. So this will become your infundibulum of the right ventricle, and then pulmonary trunk. The neural crystals, see, this is the neural crystals. So developing, this is the hindbrain region. Slowly the neural crystals are migrating and coming here. So if you remember when I was telling you about the development of the face. So the development of the face, the craniofacial skeleton is very much dependent upon the neural crystals that come from your midbrain, hindbrain region and all that. So this neural crystals, they are important for your face formation, and here again, especially the outflow tract formation. The cushion tissue is having neural crystals. So you can see the section of the heart tube. So sinus venosus, this is atrium, this is ventricle, this is outflow tract. So I've told you from dorsal and ventral, the AV cushions are forming, and here from the sides, the outflow tract. Yeah. So if a person is having some facial anomaly, you can also suspect that he could also have an anomaly in the heart, because both are developing from a common source, that is your neural crystals. See, muscular ventricular septum between presumptive right and left ventricular chamber. So presumptive right is what? Bulbous cortex. So major part of bulbous cortex forms your right ventricle. So this is one important question we ask in the embryology viva. So left ventricle will be showing you the heart tube. You have to be able to identify the parts of the heart tube and their derivatives. So this embryology part is just understand the basic concept. So congenital heart diseases is a very important topic when you go to pediatrics. So in pathology, you will see some abnormalities about the ventricular septal defects and all. And especially when you go to pediatrics, that's when this thing comes into play. So there are septal defects. So whenever septum is formed, obviously there will be an anomaly in the formation. So normally the muscular and membranous together, they'll have complete your interventricular septum. So there are defects called ventricular septal defects, which are the most common of all the congenital heart diseases. Okay, congenital heart disease itself is one of the most common causes of the congenital diseases. And among the heart diseases, the most common is ventricular septal defects. Okay, so if the ventricular septal defect is in the muscular part of ventricular septum, it's fine. With the growth of the baby, it's going to that whatever foramen is that just gets filled in. So 80% of the VSD cases are all muscular, affect that muscular component, and they are safe. I mean, you just monitor them, your regular checkups and all that. They're fine. But the other part, which you have seen 3 different parts coming. One is your conotruncal septum, aortopulmonary coming down. Then you've seen the endocardial cushion also forming some tissue. That membranous part, if there is a defect at that region, then usually the prognosis is not that good. So this muscular ventricular septum, how did it form? Because these 2 chambers are expanding and then it becomes prominent as the ventricles expand. The same point. And this again you can see. Okay, this is the muscular part, and you can see it's coming up to this AV cushions region. So atrioventricular region is filled with this cushion tissue. And you can see this is hitting back. The red color is hitting back. This is going more ventrally. And then they are going spiraling 180 degrees, because of which there's a septum that is forming is also spiraling. Okay, so this is the outflow tract septation. So this is aortopulmonary septation. You can see this part. So the stream from left AV canal enters the left ventricle and is ejected via the interventricular foramen into dorsal part. So I told you the dorsal part. Right ventricular outflow passes into the ventral part. Then intersection of these 2 streams produces clockwise spiraling as these 2 traverse the bulbus cordis and a short arterial trunk, which is your truncus arteriosus, to reach the origin of the aortic arches. See how these have shifted, and you can see slowly the 2 tubes septation, and they're becoming 2 separate tubes. And this is how your original heart looks. Okay, so this is your right ventricle. The ventral bladder flow has stimulated this part to look way forward. This left ventricle, which has the blood flow is more dorsal in the bulbus cordis, so the aurifice level, so it's behind. But later again they spiral, so this is going behind and this is coming more forward. Okay, and here you can see the 2 tubes have differentiated with the completion of the septation. And this region here is a membranous part of the interventricular septum. So the resulting septum divides the bulbus into this major part, infundibulum of right ventricle. So this part, you can see large one, this is the infundibulum of the right ventricle. And the minor part, aortic vestibule. So just the beginning of the aorta, that part is slightly enlarged, aortic vestibule. But this is very classically, you can make out the infundibulum. So gross specimen identification also, we ask you what is this, enlarged part you see here. That is your infundibulum of the right ventricle. So membranous part of interventricular septum is formed by this septum as well as the cushion tissue from the AV region. So the bulbar septum separates the outflow tract of the right ventricle, the infundibulum, from the outflow tract of the left ventricle, that is your aortic vestibule. Okay. Then this truncus arteriosus, where does it lead to? I've shown you a previous diagram. You've got your first aortic arches, which go and meet up the dorsal aorta, and then first is 1, then later 4. That is your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and the 6th. And then this again they remodel to form your blood vessels of your head and neck region. And then here you see. So this 6th arch part, this disappears, and these will be going ventrally. What is it? Developing lungs. So they'll separate and go towards your lungs. So there will be a septum that has to cut this pulmonary trunk, which is connected to your pulmonary arteries. So a wedge-shaped mesenchymal tissue again separates the truncus arteriosus. I'll see if I can draw this or I'll confuse you more. If this is the gut tube, okay? This is the dorsal aorta, and this is the aortic sac, the expanded part. So from here, arches, second arch, third arch, this is the fourth arch, fifth is not there. Then fifth goes where? Towards the developing lungs. This is your developing lung, okay? So this is the sixth arch. And suppose this is a tube. So now there should be a cut here, okay? So then this is what pulmonary trunk is forming here. This is aorta. This has to connect with these vessels. And this wedge of tissue separates the sixth arch derivative, which is your pulmonary arteries. And this will get connected to what? To your pulmonary trunk. Because of this cut here. Okay, actually these two are what? They're all part of your aortic sac. So because of this wedge-shaped tissue, the rest of the arches, they've connected with this, whereas this one has separated the pulmonary trunk. The two arteries are connected with your pulmonary trunk. Okay, and then here, you can see the spiraling here, septum, and the two trunks forming here. So that's about the truncus arteriosus. And then wherever this entry point orifices are there, so you have seen in the dissection the atrioventricular orifice, and there are valves, okay, tricuspid valve, and then you've got the bicuspid or mitral valve, and aorta and pulmonary, you've got this semilunar valves. So this is just a formation here. They just, some bulges develop and then here tissue. So that's about the development of heart. So development of heart, first thing is the location. In the cardiogenic area, with folding, the cardiogenic area relocates to your ventral side of the developing foregut. It forms a heart tube, which has two ends, a venous end and the other is an arterial end. And this particular tube expands and constricts, a series of expansions and constrictions, which is called as the sinus venosus. Then you've got a primitive atrium. Then there's an atrioventricular canal, which leads into the primitive ventricle. Primitive ventricle leads into the bulbus cordis. Bulbus cordis leads into the truncus arteriosus. This truncus arteriosus terminal part is dilated aortic sac, which communicates with the dorsal aorta via the aortic arches. Okay, the sixth arch aortic arches will not connect with the dorsal aorta, rather they'll disappear and they'll go towards your developing lungs. So pulmonary arteries, the sixth aortic arches, they give us your pulmonary arteries which go ventrally towards your developing lungs. Okay. Now, coming to the first thing is the atrial septation. So interatrial septum forms. The same time in the atrioventricular region and outflow tract region, the cushion tissue develops. That is, it's just not mesoderm, but migrated neural crystals. Okay. So in the atrioventricular canal region, from dorsal to ventral, you get one septum, that is your septum intermedium. So septum intermedium is again a short note question, both in Viva as well as in theory they'll ask, what is septum intermedium? So septum intermedium is formed by the dorsal ventral endocardial cushions. Okay, it's an atrioventricular septum. Then meanwhile, in the atrium, you get one septum primum that is forming, meeting the septum intermedium. And the space which it is going to leave above is called as what? So septum here, and if this is the roof, so initially when it comes down here, so this is your ostium primum. This is all the septum primum. And then as it is going to come down, there will be perforations. So septum primum here. And now this is the ostium secundum. Then after that, One more septum here grows. This is a septum secundum on the right side. And then the blood flows like this. So throughout the development, right to left shunting of blood is important. Okay. So this foramen ovale. So this will prevent the backflow of the blood. And after that, coming to ventricle part, so there'll be realignment of chamber so that the two AV canals look into the two respective ventricles. Okay. Then the flow of the two between the two future ventricles, that is your primitive ventricle and bulbus cordis, there has to develop a septum. So for these two chambers expand, because of which the tissue between them stands out, and that we call it as the muscular part of the septum. And now we have an interventricular septum that has to be filled up by a membranous part, and its sources are three. Okay, the right and left bulbar ridges, which you've seen two different colors coming together, bulbar ridges, and the AV endocardial cushion tissue. So this is again a question for you. Okay, so now this, because of the streaming of the direction of the streaming of the blood from the left ventricle and right ventricle, they stimulate a spiral septum formation in the outflow tract. And this cuts into the bulbus cordis, goes behind the atrial or right ventricular orifice, and includes the interventricular septum. So whatever blood is pumped by the left atrium to left ventricle goes into your aorta. And whatever blood enters into the right ventricle, that goes into your pulmonary trunk. So that spiraling takes place. So for that, you just practice a diagram. And meanwhile, again, in the truncus arteriosus, you've got another wedge of tissue separating the rest of the aortic arches from the sixth pair of aortic arches. So that these pulmonary arteries, which are coming from the sixth, will be connected to the pulmonary trunk, and the rest will be connected to the aortic arch, aorta. So that's about the entire, development of heart. So formation of interatrial septum is a short note question. Then again, formation of interventricular septum is also a short note question. And aorticopulmonary, you have to learn because that's also a component of the ventricle septation. So these are the two short notes that usually come from this part here. And next, coming to the fetal cardiac ultrasound. So that there's an ultrasound, the antenatal mothers, they undergo an investigation, that is your ultrasound. And we also have one more investigation called where, especially it's not just the fetus, the fetal heart is also visualized. That's called as a fetal cardiac ultrasonography. So cardiac screening is done. Supposing if there is, you take the mother's history and you suspect that there could be a chance of the heart of the fetus could be affected. So we particularly prescribe, we ask the patient to get, not patient, the mother, to get a fetal cardiac ultrasound done. So the cardiac screening using high resolution real time. So high resolution, and all these are terms you don't need to remember. Just remember that there's a screening done to check for the heart diseases. And usually we perform this between the 18th to 22nd week of gestation, because that is when you can visualize the heart. It's big enough to look at the chambers and all. So here you can see how it appears, the fetal heart. So you can see also that pumping blood, contracting heart can be seen with all the chambers. So you can make out any septal defects are there and all. So congenital heart defects, as I previously told, it's quite an important one of the most common causes of congenital diseases. See, these are the teratogens like alcohol, lithium, retinoic acid. So sometimes for your acne, some use the retinoic acid ointments. So pregnant women or women who are planning for a pregnancy are suggested that they avoid such ointments which you apply on your pimples. So because they consist of retinoic acid. Okay, so these may cause again malformations. Alcohol, lithium, and then rubella virus. And then there's maternal diabetes. So usually the diabetic mothers, they are having more chances of giving birth to a baby with a congenital heart defect. And genetically, if you see, there's multifactorial. It's not one single cause for the development of heart diseases. It is rather multifactorial. So because in diabetics, in diabetic mother, they're having a high concentration of the blood sugar. So that does have an impact on the developing heart. So what are the various congenital heart anomalies? So one is a dextrocardia. So this is one atrial septal defect. Okay, septum secundum here. So a defect is here. Then the other one, septum, first I talked about cardiac looping. So C-shaped loop and all that, then an S-shaped loop, and they just shift positions. So related to that, one anomaly is the dextrocardia. The second one is an atrial septal defect. When the septum primum is coming down, you have the ostium primum. Then when it comes down, you have the ostium secundum. So usually ostium secundum defects are most common. I mean, they don't completely heal. Okay. Then ventricular septal defects, again I told you muscular and membranous part is coming. So there can be a defect in this meeting of these two, or proper septum is not formed, because both from AV endocardial tissue as well as outflow cushion tissue, they both are dependent on neural crystals. So if there is no migration, proper migration or regulated migration of neural crystals, then there can be a defective, completion of the interventricular septum. So that leads to ventricular septal, which is the most common ventricular septal defects. Again, septation of outflow tracts also. Normally, because the spiral septum has to cut, your right ventricular outflow should be directed towards the pulmonary. The left ventricle should be cut to go into your aorta. Supposing if this septation is not spiraling and it just goes straight down, then what happens? Your right ventricular blood goes into your aorta, and the left ventricular blood goes into your pulmonary arteries and into your lungs. Do you think it's going to help the child? No, because it's a very fatal condition, because right ventricle, what are you having? Deoxygenated blood. And if it again goes back to your brain and the rest of the systemic body tissues, what is happening? The tissues of the body are receiving deoxygenated blood, which will prevent them from functioning normally. Okay, so that's one thing, septation defects. Then persistent truncus arteriosus. So here the truncus arteriosus, I told you, it has to cut into two. The pulmonary arteries, the sixth arch, and the rest of the four arches, there should be a septation between them, so that these will connect to the respective pulmonary trunk and the aorta. So that sometimes a common trunk. So both the bloods from the left ventricle and the right ventricle, they go into one single tube instead of two different tubes, which is normal. Then transposition of great vessels is the same, which I told you. From right ventricle, it will be the aorta. Then tetralogy of Fallot, which is an important short note in both your applied anatomy questions in the examination practical as well as in your theory. So that I will describe here. So dextrocardia, the looping defect will be there. So the cardiac loop, okay, it goes more towards the left. So heart loops to the left instead of the right, and then there's a dextrocardia, situs, and there's a condition called situs inversus. In situs inversus, you have the organs like the liver is on the left side. Normally the liver should be on the right side. So this dextrocardia can be a part of your situs inversus, like every other organ is also in the reverse position, or can be exclusive to the heart where you see the dextrocardia condition. So the looping defect, okay. Then atrial septal defect, most significant is the ostium secundum defect. So there's a large opening between the left and the right atrium. Then this is caused by excessive cell death and resorption. So normally I've shown you small perforations and a gap comes, and again that's going to get healed. But too much of the gap which cannot be closed, so that can cause the atrial septal defect. So three major types. So here you can see this is a perforated, multiple hole defect, or else it will be completely like this. So various you can see here because of septum secundum here, more towards the inferior vena cava part. So not much important for you. Then coming to ventricular septal defects is the most common type, and 25% of all of the cardiac abnormalities. And if it's a small thing, usually the ventricular septal defect can, the children can extend into the adult and old age also without much of a problem, except for working, exertional activities and all, if they can be reduced and counseling is given to the patient, he can lead a normal life. But only there are few which may need a surgery. So I told you the muscular one, if there's a septal defect, it can, with age, there are chances that will heal by itself, but membranous, less chances. So you can see again septum here, ventricular septal defects. The septum did not close. So why does this ventricular septal defect happen? One is because of the deficient development of the outflow cushions, because the cushions have to come and meet here. And the second thing what it can be failure of the muscular and membranous parts to meet. Then third is the endocardial cushions, they also contribute. So again, if there is a lacking there, then that also causes a VSD. Then insufficient development of muscular ventricular septum. So though the membranous has come up to its extent, which it has to grow, but the muscular tissue is like very less developed, then also there can be the VSDs. And altered hemodynamics. So certain conditions which prevent the closure of the interventricular septum. So membranous VSDs are more serious and often associated with abnormalities in partition of conotruncal region, so which I've already told because of their involvement. So of all the heart diseases, the ultimate, when do you say it's going to become a fatal condition is when there's a reversal shunting of the blood. Okay, so when here again from the left to the right, there is a shunting of the blood and then there's increased blood flow. Okay. And then again, once the blood flow towards the right is increased, again, it's going to shunt back right to the left. So that's called as an Eisenmenger syndrome, and it leads to cyanosis because deoxygenated blood enters into systemic circulation. Okay. So the most important consequence is this shunting of the blood. So first left to right it goes because left is, it pumps because left is more muscular. So that the blood goes into the right. But again, when the pulmonary resistance increases, again this right gets back into the left. Okay, when it gets back into the left, deoxygenated blood is entering again into your systemic circulation. So that's where the problem comes. Then coming to tetralogy of Fallot. So this is one of the most common abnormality occurring in the conotruncal region. So here, what is this? An unequal division of conus resulting from anterior displacement of conotruncal septum. So here, tetralogy is 4. So let's see what are those 4. This is your pulmonary trunk. This is the aorta. This is the right ventricle. Okay. So here, this pulmonary trunk, this gets stenosed. So pulmonic stenosis. So what happens? The blood difficult to go into the pulmonary artery. So there's a lot of blood in the right ventricle. Then right ventricle gets hypertrophied. So right ventricle normally, which wall should be more thicker? The left ventricle. But here what happens? The right ventricle starts getting thicker and it gets hypertrophy. And also in this tetralogy of Fallot, there will be a ventricular septal defect. You can see there's a septal defect here. Then overriding of aorta. So this is your septum, exactly above the septum, the aorta is beginning. That's called overriding of aorta. So these 4 are called tetralogy of Fallot and you have to study them. One is pulmonic stenosis causing this right ventricular hypertrophy. Then there is this ventricular septal defect and the other one is an overriding of the aorta. These 4. So pulmonary stenosis is what? A narrow right ventricular outflow region. Then VSD is this large defect in the interventricular septum. Overriding aorta is the aorta rises directly above the septal defect. Right ventricular hypertrophy is because of high pressure on the right side, the wall hypertrophies. So that's about the tetralogy of Fallot. So please read this part. Then coming to transposition of great vessels. So transposition of great vessels, see. And look at this. This is aorta, this is pulmonary trunk. This is coming from where? The left ventricle, pulmonary trunk. Then from the right ventricle, aorta. So aorta originates from the right ventricle and then the pulmonary artery from the left ventricle. So conotruncal septum fails to follow its normal spiral course and runs straight down. So left ventricle will pump blood into what? Pulmonary circulation. So here this will go where? The blood which is coming from the lungs. It will again go back to the lungs, pulmonary circulation. The venous blood, whatever has come into the right atrium, right ventricle, again goes back into your systemic circulation. So this is a fatal condition. Transposition. That's because you are not able to make out the spiraling of the septum. It's like just cutting it into 2. So that's it about the development of the heart. And tomorrow it's going to be the vascular system.